Christmas in Kawuna, Episode 2, The Edge of Truth. Night returned to Kawuna with a strange, deceptive calm, one that seemed to sit heavy over the land like a shroud. The wind was still, even the trees refused to sway. In the makeshift safe house hidden among the cliffs of Gidenbako, Amina sat near the low burning lantern, watching its glow stretch across. Ethan's tired face. He had removed his tactical vest and loosened his boots, but his posture remained alert, soldier stiff, ready to leap into action at the smallest sound. Amina studied him quietly. His eyes were the kind that had seen too much, but still searched for hope in the world. His jaw clenched whenever distant gunfire sounded, but softened whenever he looked at her. Tonight, they had both survived too much to sleep. Finally, she spoke. "Tell me the truth," she said softly. "Why is your country really here?" Ethan inhaled and exhaled slowly, the question heavier than the silence that followed. "It started as a counter-terror mission," he replied, "but since we landed, it feels like we're solving a puzzle someone else scattered on purpose." Amina's eyes narrowed. "You think the terrorists and your government are connected?" He didn't answer immediately. A long moment passed before he said, "I think someone wants this conflict. Someone powerful." Amina's breath hitched. "General Danladi," she whispered. Ethan lifted his gaze. "You mentioned him earlier. Why him?" She hesitated, pressing her palms together as though gathering courage. "Because my father worked in the Ministry of Security before the insurgents killed him. He used to say Danladi wanted chaos. Chaos makes tyrants look like saviors." Ethan leaned forward, his voice low. "Amina, what exactly did your father know?" She swallowed. He knew the Red Crescent Front was receiving weapons from outside Africa, from a Western source. Ethan froze. A cold pulse of dread rippled through him. "That can't be possible," he murmured. "The Dominion military tracks every weapon shipment. Nothing just disappears." Amina's gaze softened with pity. "Ethan, powerful people can make things disappear." He looked away, troubled, his world shifting in ways he wasn't prepared for. Amina moved closer, resting her hand lightly on his. "You saved me today," she whispered. "Now I will help you see what you are truly fighting." He turned to her. Their faces were close, the air between them charged and fragile. Her hand was warm against his cold skin. He didn't speak, didn't move, didn't blink. Amina felt her chest tighten. "Ethan," she whispered, voice trembling. Before either could look away, a hard knock rattled the door. They both jumped. Ethan was on his feet instantly, rifle ready, eyes burning with soldier instinct. "Who is it?" he demanded. A familiar voice answered, "It's Sergeant Lopez." Ethan exhaled slowly and opened the door. Lopez slipped inside, sweat beading his brow, breath unsteady. He handed Ethan a cracked tablet, its screen flickering. "You need to see this," he said. The footage showed an airfield, a private jet, men loading crates marked with the Dominion military seal. Amina gasped. Ethan's jaw dropped, disbelief warring with rage. "No, this isn't real. This has to be staged. Who gave you this?" Lopez wiped his face. "A contact from the Kawuna intelligence wing. He said Danladi has been working with a Dominion contractor, Black Pine Security." Ethan felt something inside him break. Black Pine. The same company that had pushed for the air invasion. The same company that had lobbied Congress for emergency intervention, a rogue contractor feeding weapons to terrorists, or worse, feeding conflict for profit. Amina stepped closer to him. "What will you do now?" she whispered. Ethan clenched his fists. "I'll finish the mission," he said quietly. "But now I know who the enemy is." Amina looked at him with something like awe and fear. "You are fighting a storm, Ethan Ross." He turned to her, his voice softening. "I don't care how dark the storm is. I'm not letting them destroy your country." Emotion flashed across her eyes, pain, gratitude, and something deeper she tried to hide. Then Ethan stepped closer. So close their breaths mingled. "Amina," he whispered, "I won't let anything happen to you." She lowered her gaze, her heartbeat loud in her ears. "You don't even know me," she whispered, though her voice betrayed how much she wanted to believe him. "I know enough," he said. "I know your courage saved us today. I know you're strong, brave, and kind. I know—" He stopped himself, suddenly aware of the raw honesty spilling out. Amina lifted her eyes. "Ethan, I'm afraid." He touched her cheek gently. Her breath caught. "You don't have to be," he said. "Not while I'm here." The moment stretched, warm and trembling, but the universe, as always, punished softness. A boom exploded outside, dust raining from the ceiling. Lopez cursed. "Mortars! They've found us!" More explosions followed, thunderous, violent. Ethan grabbed Amina's arm. "Stay behind me!" The door burst open as Private Hale stumbled in. "They're advancing from the ridge. We need to move, now!" Ethan turned to Amina. "We're getting you out of here." Fear flashed across her face, but she nodded. Outside, the ridge lit up with fire and shadows. Gunshots cracked across the night. The Red Crescent front was closing in fast. Ethan led them toward the back exit. Lopez covered their flank. Hale sent distress signals with shaking hands. As they ran through the dark valley, Amina clutched Ethan's arm. "Why are they attacking now?" she shouted over the gunfire. Ethan didn't slow. "Because someone told them where we were." Amina's eyes widened. "Someone betrayed you." Another explosion rocked the ground behind them. Ethan squeezed her hand. "Not just us. Someone wants you dead, too." She stumbled, but he caught her, holding her close for one brief heartbeat. Their eyes locked. A silent promise passed between them. He will protect her. She will trust him. Even though the world was burning, even though they were running through death's shadow, even though love was the last thing either expected. They didn't stop until they reached the ravine, breathing hard, covered in dust, hearts pounding. Amina pressed a hand to her chest. "I thought you were never coming back," she whispered, trembling. Ethan touched her forehead gently. "I promised I would." She closed her eyes, and for the first time since the war began, Amina felt safe. Not because the danger had ended, but because someone finally stood with her. Someone who saw her. Someone who might become more than fate intended. Ethan took her hand. "We need to keep moving," he whispered. But he didn't let go. And neither did she. Dawn crept over the ravine in faint gold streaks. The wind carried the smell of burnt oil and rain-soaked dust. Ethan and Amina crouched behind a ridge of broken rocks, while Lopez scanned the horizon through battered binoculars. "They've stopped shelling," Lopez said quietly. Ethan nodded, still watching the valley. "That won't last. They're regrouping." Amina pulled her shawl tighter, exhaustion settling into her bones. How far is the city? About 15 clicks, Lopez answered, but half the roads are gone. Bridges blown. Ethan turned toward her. We'll have to cross through the desert strip and reach the abandoned communications tower. From there, we can send a signal to command. She frowned. You still trust your command after what you saw? He hesitated. That's not trust, he said finally. That's duty. They set out just before sunrise. The land between the ridges and the capital was a graveyard. Half-buried vehicles, collapsed farmhouses, the charred remains of what had once been orchards. Every few miles they passed refugees moving in silence, faces hidden, eyes hollow. Amina walked beside Ethan, occasionally pointing out landmarks half swallowed by sand. I used to come here as a child, she said quietly. There were pomegranate trees everywhere. My father would lift me to pick the ripest ones. Ethan glanced at her. It must hurt to see it like this. It hurts more to forget it, she said. They walked for hours, speaking little. When the sun rose high and cruel, they stopped beneath the shadow of an overturned truck. Lopez shared what little water they had left. Rations won't last another day, he muttered. Amina reached into her satchel and handed him 2 small wrapped bundles. Dates, she said. From my neighbor, before we left Naya. She told me to keep them for when hope felt small. Ethan took one, smiled faintly. She's a wise woman. She was, Amina murmured. The militia burned her house last month. Ethan lowered his gaze. I'm sorry. She gave a sad smile. War doesn't ask for apologies. Only memories. For a while they sat in silence, and the stillness between them was almost tender. Then a low hum broke it. Drones. Ethan reacted instantly, grabbing Amina's arm, pulling her beneath the truck. Stay still, he whispered. The metallic buzz grew louder, closer. A silver reconnaissance drone swept across the wasteland, its red scanner blinking. Ethan drew his pistol, though he knew a single bullet wouldn't stop it. Lopez hissed, We're exposed! Amina reached into her satchel and pulled out a shard of mirror she'd found in the ruins. Give me 5 seconds. She crawled out from under the truck before Ethan could stop her, positioned the mirror at an angle against the sun, and sent a flash of reflected light toward the opposite ridge. The drone's sensors jerked toward the false flare. It veered off course. When it vanished, Ethan grabbed her by the shoulders, his face pale. Are you insane? She looked up at him, smiling faintly through her fear. Maybe. But we're still alive, aren't we? He stared at her for a long second, half furious, half in awe. Then, quietly, You really are impossible. I take that as a compliment, she said. By dusk, they reached the communications tower, a skeleton of rusted steel rising above cracked earth. The lower rooms were filled with sand and old radio parts, but the upper control room still held a working console, its solar panel flickering weakly. Ethan powered it up. Lopez began tapping commands, trying to connect to satellite frequency. Static filled the air. Signal's jammed, Lopez said. We might be able to boost it manually. Before he could finish, the screen came to life. A face appeared. General Danladi. Amina gasped. Ethan froze. Well, the general said with cold amusement, the lost pilot and his local guardian angel. You've caused quite a storm, Captain Ross. Ethan's voice was sharp. You're working with Blackpine. You're feeding weapons to the terrorists. Danladi's smile didn't waver. Words like terrorists depend on which side of the table one sits. We all serve someone's profit, Captain. You serve yours. I serve mine. Amina stepped forward, trembling with rage. You destroyed this country. Danladi's eyes glinted. My dear Amina, your father tried to expose us once. He should have known the cost of honesty. Ethan's blood turned to ice. You ordered his death. The general leaned closer to the camera. And I will order yours if you continue this little adventure. Turn yourself in. The girl can live. Amina's hand tightened on Ethan's arm. Don't believe him. Ethan stared at the screen. I don't. He smashed the console with his rifle butt. Sparks flew, and the image disappeared into darkness. Lopez cursed. Now we've lost the uplink. Ethan turned toward Amina, voice low. He won't stop until you're dead. We can't stay here. She looked up at him, eyes glistening. My father died trying to tell the truth. Maybe we can finish what he started. Ethan hesitated. You'd risk your life for that? She held his gaze. You'd risk yours for me. The words hung between them like a confession neither could take back. Then Ethan said softly, Yes, I would. They left the tower before dawn, heading toward the capital outskirts. Lopez moved ahead to scout the road. The air was heavy with the promise of rain. When they reached a burned checkpoint, Lopez stopped suddenly. Movement ahead. Two vehicles rolled out from behind an old fuel station, black armored jeeps with Dominion markings. Amina frowned. Your men? Ethan narrowed his eyes. No, those aren't our call signs. Before he could react, the lead jeep opened fire. Ambush! Lopez shouted. Bullets ripped through the air. Ethan dragged Amina behind a crumbled wall. Dust and shards rained around them. Lopez fired back. They're Dominion operatives! What the hell is happening? Ethan's mind raced. Danlady's reach extended even into his own army. Stop firing! Ethan yelled. They'll triangulate. But Lopez didn't hear or didn't care. A round struck him in the chest. He collapsed, blood soaking his uniform. Amina screamed, Lopez! Ethan pulled her back as the jeeps advanced. His pulse hammered in his ears. He fired 2 quick shots. One hit a tire, sending the vehicle spinning into the ditch. The second jeep stopped. A voice shouted over a megaphone. Captain Ross, you're under arrest for treason! Ethan felt his world tilt. Amina grabbed his hand. They're your own people. He met her eyes, voice rough. Not anymore. He fired again, shattering the jeep's windshield. Run! They sprinted through the ruins, ducking through smoke and debris. Behind them, the sound of engines roared. They reached the edge of the dry riverbed before Ethan finally collapsed behind a pile of stones, panting. His shoulder bled where a bullet had grazed him. Amina tore a strip from her scarf and pressed it to his wound. You're losing too much blood. He winced. We need to keep moving. You won't last an hour. He looked up at her. Then I'll spend that hour with you. She stared at him, tears threatening. Don't say that. I mean it, he whispered. I don't know how this ends, but I know what matters right now. Amina shook her head, half in disbelief, half in surrender. Ethan. He reached up, brushing his fingers along her cheek. You make me remember why people fight for peace. Her breath caught. For a moment, the world stopped. Their lips met, soft, trembling, desperate. It wasn't a perfect kiss. It was survival, grief, and hope bound together. but it was real. When they parted, the rain began to fall. Ethan looked toward the horizon. "We'll finish this. For Lopez. For your father. For everyone they've destroyed." Amina nodded. "Together." "Together," he echoed. Thunder rolled over the mountains. The war had changed its shape. Now it was personal.